Good evening, everyone. We welcome you tonight to Faith Assembly of God. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule for this incredible performance. We are so glad that you were here to be a part of this tonight. Leonardo da Vinci, the famous painter during the Renaissance era, was born in Vinci, Italy in 1452. While he had a collection of beautiful works, perhaps the most famous painting is The Last Supper. In 1494, when Leonardo was 42 years of age, he was hired by the Duke of Milan to decorate the dining room of the Covenant Church, which was the favorite room and the favorite shrine of the Duke's young bride. For the dining room theme, Da Vinci chose The Last Supper. However, instead of doing a faithful reproduction of the original scene as it took place in first century Palestine, Da Vinci chose to reproduce the scene as if it had taken place in 15th century Italy, using what he considered to be the most dramatic moment of the Last Supper, when Jesus reveals to his disciples that one of them will betray him. In this living drama, reset to modern times and language, we get a glimpse of the apostles and what they might have been feeling, what they might have been saying and thinking after Jesus spoke those ominous words, "One of you will betray me." Mark chapter 14, verses 12 through 19, it reads, "On the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, when the Passover lamb is sacrificed, Jesus' disciples asked him, 'Where do you want us to go to prepare the Passover meal for you?' Jesus sent two of them into Jerusalem with these instructions. 'As you go into the city, a man carrying a pitcher of water will meet you. Follow him. At the house he enters, say to the owner, "The teacher says, where is the guest room where I can eat the Passover with my disciples?" He will take you to a large upstairs room that is already set up. That is where you should prepare the meal." So the two disciples went into the city and found everything as Jesus had said, and there they prepared the Passover meal. In the evening, Jesus arrived with the 12. And as they were at the table eating, Jesus said, "I tell you the truth, one of you eating with me here will betray me." Greatly distressed, they turned to one another and said, "Am I the one?"
My friends, one of you will betray me.
My name is Nathaniel, but my friends know me as Bartholomew. Like many of the other disciples at this table, I'm a fisherman by trade. I met Jesus when I was actually a disciple of John the Baptist. My friend Philip, he said, "We have found him of whom Moses and the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." I laughed and said, "Can anything good really come out of Nazareth?" I wasn't trying to be mean. It's just that Nazareth is such a small, insignificant town that I couldn't believe God would use that town to reveal his chosen one there. But Philip said, "Come and see." And so he took me to meet Jesus. And as soon as Jesus saw me, he said, "Here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." I was a little surprised. It's like, How do you know me? He said, even before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. You see, when I was a baby, my mom would leave me under the shade of fig trees when she had to go work in the fields. Jesus knew these little things about me that even I didn't remember, possibly even from the day I was born. And from that, I just knew this guy was authentic. And I told him, you truly are the Son of God, the King of Israel. I've served him ever since as a disciple and as one of his chosen. And yet now in the middle of this very special supper, he tells us that one of us will betray him. How can that be? How can one of us, his closest friends, possibly be a traitor? But in the back of my mind, I can't help but wonder, is it me? Am I the one?
My name is Matthew. Some people know me as Levi. Others, just the hated tax collector, like Zacchaeus. You may even know me by a different name, because I've completely changed my name and my life when I became friends with Jesus. It was just another boring day at the office, and Jesus bursts in, exclaims, "Follow me," and runs back up. It was just so different from my normal routine, so unusual that I had to know more. So I invited Jesus and his disciples to a dinner party I was having that evening with some of my co-workers and business partners. Things were going along fine until the Pharisees showed up. I was horrified and embarrassed as they started criticizing Jesus for eating with sinners like me. But Jesus stood up for me, and he said to them, "Those who are healthy do not need a doctor, but those who are sick do." I was impressed. I knew then that this was the kind of life I wanted to lead, the kind of person I wanted to become. So I did some research, studying our ancient scriptures and closely listening to Jesus' sermons, and eventually repenting and following him. I know now that he is the chosen one, God's anointed. He's the one that the prophets told us about, and I plan on writing a paper to prove it, referencing our sacred writings and my notes from his Sermon on the Mountain in Galilee 3 years ago. I was so excited, ready to bring a new gospel, good news to the world for everyone. And then Jesus lays this news on us that one of us will betray him. One of us. Who could it be? I feel like my past is coming back to haunt me. Will the others suspect me because I used to be a tax collector? Even worse, do I even trust myself? Am I the one?
My name is James. It's a pretty common name, though. Sometimes people call me James the Little or James the Lesser because I am smaller than the other James. My dad's name was Alphaeus, so I'm also known as James, the son of Alphaeus. I'll never forget the first time I saw Jesus. I was walking down the road where John was baptizing, and when I noticed a huge crowd had gathered, I was curious to see what was going on. So I went down for a closer look. This man, Jesus, was asking John to baptize him, and John was refusing, but Jesus insisted. When John finally gave in and finished baptizing him, I swear I saw the sky open up and the Holy Spirit swooping down on Jesus in the form of a dove. The whole crowd heard a voice from heaven saying, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased." At the end of Jesus' first year of public ministry, he chose me as one of his 12 apostles, and we have been best friends ever since. Walking and talking together, praying together, and me working to learn everything I can about him and his heavenly Father. But now, Jesus is saying that one of us will betray him. It can't be. It would have to be a stranger, somebody crazy and outside of this group. But Jesus is so sure, and I have to ask myself, am I the one?
My name is James, and I am one of Jesus' chosen 12 apostles. My brother John over there and I used to be ordinary fishermen before Jesus found us mending our nets with our father Zebedee by the Sea of Galilee almost 3 years ago. I always knew we were meant for more than that. And sure enough, Jesus asked us to be his disciples and even one of his hand-picked 12 apostles. Our mother Salome was so proud of us, but she wanted to make sure that we'd get the recognition we deserve. So on our way to Jerusalem last week, we asked Jesus, "Teacher, grant to us to sit at your right and left hand when you come into your kingdom." He answered, "You don't know what you're talking about. Are you really able to drink the cup that I am about to drink, or be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized?" I was a little unsure about exactly what he meant, but we answered, "Of course." He looked at us sadly and said that even though we would be following in his footsteps, he didn't have the power to grant us those honors in heaven. The others were a little angry when they heard what we had asked, but Jesus soothed them by saying, "Those who wanted to be first must be the servant of all," and demonstrated his words by washing our feet just before supper. But now I'm really confused because despite all his promises and speeches, he's saying one of us will betray him. Who can it be? Why should one of us do such a thing? I have to wonder, is it I? Am I the one?
I'm Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. Everyone calls me Andrew the Bringer because that's what I do best. I bring others to Jesus. Not really talented, just an ordinary man like any one of you. But I've done my best to serve Jesus with what little gifts I do have. I'm the one who brought my brother Peter to Jesus, and it's just been so amazing to watch him be transformed by Jesus. I'm sure you've heard about the crowd of 5,000. Well, I'm the guy who actually found the boy with the original 5 loaves and 2 fish. Just the other day, some Greeks came looking for Jesus, and I was called in to help them see the light. You know, it's not much, but I guess Jesus saw something good in me that nobody else sees, because he called me, handpicked me to be one of his 12 disciples. And ever since, we've been very close. It's not exactly like I'm in the inner circle like my brother Peter, but I've been a good friend and companion to my Lord, and truly, what greater gift could life give a fisherman like me? But now, one of us is to betray him? I can't even comprehend that. How could it be? How could anyone do that and still live with themselves? I know I could never do that. Could I? Is that even possible? Am I the one?
Hello. Hello. My name is Philip. I'm from Bethsaida in Galilee. I remember the first time I met Jesus. My friends and I were listening to John the Baptist, and Jesus approached us, and he called us to be his disciples. Well, we immediately dropped everything and followed him, no questions asked. It was so great to be there with Jesus when he fed the 5,000 with just 5 loaves and 2 fish. I was actually quite worried because there was a lot of mouths to feed. But that's when Andrew found a young boy in the crowd who brought his lunch to Jesus. The other day, there was Greeks that approached me and wanted to know if they could interview Jesus, and I really wasn't sure how to answer them, so I spoke with Andrew, and we were able to have them meet with Jesus. At first, I had a hard time understanding what Jesus was trying to tell us. He was saying things like, God was our Heavenly Father, which was way beyond my understanding. But after a time of listening to him, I think I finally began to understand what he was trying to tell us. It seems like when someone has met Jesus, they have also met the Father. Because in Jesus, I see everything that I would want to see and find in the Father. There's absolutely nothing about Jesus that I wouldn't want to see or find in the Father. But if that's true, how can there be a traitor among us, like Jesus says? Doesn't he know that if he betrays Jesus, he betrays God? How can somebody be so blind? Could it be me? Am I the one?
I am Thaddeus,
one of the disciples whom Jesus called to be an apostle. It is such an honor. Jesus chose 12 of us to become the foundation of a new kingdom, just like there were 12 tribes in the old Jerusalem kingdom. I don't feel that I deserve to be among these apostles, but he chose me, and I am honored. It was such an amazing day. After a night of praying, Jesus called to us and the apostles, and he told us that gave us authority over power, all dominions and all diseases and illnesses. And he told us to go out and preach that the kingdom of heaven is here. Thank you, Jesus. And I quote, he said, "It is enough that the disciples be like his teacher and the masters be like his servants." But it took me back to when I was in Jerusalem. And Jesus invited everyone to follow him, saying, "Come to me, all you who are tired and stressed, and I will give you rest, for the load I carry is easy and light." Tonight was different, though. Tonight, Jesus, who came to help our lives easier, he was being forced to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders, knowing that one of us will betray him. Which one of us could it be? Maybe the person we least suspect. Or will all of us betray him before the night is over? Philip, or Peter, Judas, John, even me. Am I the one? Is it I?
I'm Thomas, the twin. Now, some people call me Didymus, which means, twin. Well, I'm not totally a skeptical kind of guy. However, I do require some evidence before I believe something. Just a little bit of proof before I trust. Now, I have been brave and no problem with that. Spontaneous. Just like the time Mary and Martha sent word to Jesus that their brother Lazarus was dead. Now, Jesus wanted to go, but most of our friends didn't want to go to Bethsaida. They were afraid. Bethany, because they were afraid. They were afraid of how unpopular Jesus was there. But Jesus was determined. They were all afraid. But I stood up. I backed him up. Let's go with him, even if we die with him. Yeah, it bothers me sometimes when people don't remember those times. They like to remember the times when I've been overcautious or doubtful. They talk about times when I would dare ask an extra question before I went off with the crowd. All the while refusing my faithfulness and my dedication to Christ. But there's so many people nowadays, so many people around that are enemies of Jesus, to the point they want to destroy him. Why? He wants us to be God's servants, and they want God to serve them. Even now, within our group, there's a traitor. And there's so many enemies around us that I'm beginning to even doubt myself. Is it me? Am I the one?
After Jesus called Peter and Andrew to follow him, he came to me, John, and my brother James, as we was in a nearby boat mending our nets with our father Zebedee.
as soon as he called us, we just left everything we knew, right down to our boat and our father, and we followed him. It's been both the easiest and the hardest thing I've ever done. Seeing him perform miracles and preach, I knew he was as much God as anyone could ever be. Yet, seeing him as my friend and sharing in his struggles and as well as his many victories, I loved him as a person too. And I believe he loved me because he would call me the beloved disciple sometimes. I was on the Mount of Transfiguration, and I shared in his glory. He also put Peter and I in charge of the Passover celebration arrangements here tonight because I guess he trusts us, and he considers us his closest friends. He even shared with me a story of the talk he had with Nicodemus. When he spoke those beautiful words, Jesus said, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, and whosoever believeth on him shall not perish but have everlasting life." You know, someday I plan to write a book of his sayings and the amazing things he has done so that everyone can read and believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and share in everlasting life with him. Yet, he just said here tonight that one of us would betray him. I just almost can't believe it. I don't want to believe it, but it must be true since he said it. So, who could it be? I know it's not my brother James or Peter or Andrew. It's just as likely to be me, John, the beloved disciple. But that's not possible, is it? Could it be me? Am I the one?
Hey, I'm Simon, the zealot. Before Jesus called me, I was hanging out with the crowd known as zealots. You know, what's a zealot? Well, basically, we were a bunch of angry, bitter revolutionaries, all armed and ready to rebel against Rome. We were all about crushing the enemy and bringing down the paradise that we thought Israel used to be when David and Solomon were reigning. You can't imagine my surprise when Jesus told us about another kind of paradise, a kingdom within the human heart where only God is in control. I was totally surprised. I left the zealots and pledged my allegiance to Jesus instead. He showed me that the battle for the heart is the only and true lasting conquest. And in turn, I've given him all my loyalty, devotion. Militarily speaking, I guess I just could surrender myself to him. Unconditionally and completely. I've given up vowing to think like he thinks, to love as he loves, to obey as he obeys, and to serve as he serves, and even to love as he loves. Some from my old group think that this means I've given up my freedom and free will. But for the first time in my life, I actually feel free. I'm not afraid of Rome anymore. It may be mighty, but God is almighty. But even now, within our group, the master says there's a traitor, a deserter, a spiritual Roman among us. One who will try to take by force what can only be won with love. Who can it be? Matthew? The tax collector? A former servant of Rome? Or does everyone suspect me, since I'm the only one with a history of violence? Is it me? Am I the one?
My name is Judas of Kerioth, or Judas Iscariot. Do you know I'm the only Judean in this whole group? The rest of them, they're all from Galilee. But my home, it's in the village of Kerioth in Judea. Whatever. Despite my humble beginnings, the others must have trusted me because they chose me to be their treasurer. And Jesus must have believed in me because he chose me to be one of his 12 apostles. You know, a lot of people say I take money for my own use, and that Jesus even directed his talks about greed and love of money directly at me. But of course I got upset when Mary washed Jesus' feet with that expensive perfume. It cost a whole month's wages. And if I made a deal with the chief priests and I just happened to have 30 pieces of silver on me, so what? That's my business. I mean, I believe in Jesus, but he has to do something to prove that he's God's Messiah, but he refuses to move. So I made a move of my own. And now he's hinting that he knows what I've done, even mentioning it when he washed my feet a few moments ago. But I have my reasons. I'm not as bad as you think I am, nor are you as good as you think you are. Why are you so much better than me? I mean, after all, I just wanted to give Jesus the help he needed, to give him that push, that exposure. But now I'm wondering how I should go about this. Do I act surprised? Do I pretend I didn't hear him? Or do I just play along with the others and self-righteously ask, is it me? Am I the one?
My name is Peter, formerly known as Simon, and this is my story of how I came to be with Jesus. My brother and Andrew and I were out fishing on the Sea of Galilee one afternoon, just casting our nets into the sea when Jesus walked by and said, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." So we did. Then one morning, after a long night of working with nothing to show for it, he said to me, "Simon, take the boat further out and throw your nets out for a catch." I admit I was pretty skeptical, exhausted, and a little frustrated at that point, but I told him, "Master, we have been working all night and have caught nothing, but if you tell me to, I will let down my nets." As soon as we did, as he said, we had a great catch of fish. We actually caught so many fish, we had to call the other boats nearby to come help us at the shore. And I was shocked and so disappointed in myself for distrusting him. As soon as we reached the shore, I fell on my knees at his feet, and I apologized, saying, "Leave me, O Lord, for I am a sinner." He just smiled and said again that he would make us fishers of men. And then he changed my name from Simon to Peter, which means the rock. And when I finally surrendered completely and announced that he was the Christ, the Son of the living God, near Caesarea Philippi, he said, "On this rock I will build my church." I finally felt like somebody important. And I was afraid to give that up. So when he mentioned a few minutes later that he would be going to Jerusalem to die at the hands of angry men, I argued with him. I'll never forget his next words, though. He said, "Get behind me, Satan." It seems like a mixture of good and evil, of right and wrong. Tonight, when he said that one of us would betray him, I immediately swore it wouldn't be me, that I would follow him even to death. He just shook his head. He looked at me and sadly saying, "Before the sun came up, I will have denied him 3 times. I know the others call me the big fisherman, but with Jesus, I feel so small and unworthy. Will I really deny him tonight before the sun rises? And if I do, what will he do? Will he kick me out of the group? Pretend he doesn't know me? Refuse to let me into his kingdom? Is this what he meant when he said one of us would betray him? If I knew who it was going to be, I'd pierce his heart right here, right now with this knife." But what if that would mean piercing my own heart? God, please don't let it be me. It hurts me to wonder, am I the one?